Welcome to season 2 of the Morrell Speaks podcast. I am so excited to have so many listeners locally, statewide, nationally, and even to my few international listeners. I really appreciate you. So this is something new. Obviously, on season 1, you didn't see my face or my guest face. So now, with so much success in season 1, I decided to transform season 2 into audio and visual. And I couldn't think of any better person to kick off this second season than the one and only Darren Reese. Yeah, give him a big hand. Nice. So I'll start off with a story, right? So when I first decided I was going to run for mayor, I put up this big billboard up in the city, and I put a QR code up on it, and there's a secret behind it that I was going to run for office. And there was this guy that had a meeting with me, and we were at McAllister's, believe it or not. I don't know if you even remember the story or not. We were at McAllister's, and we sat down, and he gave me this whole game plan. Like, hey, if you really want to run for mayor, this is what you need to do. This is who you need to talk to, the whole entire thing. And long story short, man, he walked with me and mentored me through this crazy process, and came out with a victory, man. And this guy is multi-talented. He's a business owner. He's a political guru locally and statewide. He is a pillar in the community. He's worked for Marion and for the city and done a lot of great things you would think he's almost 70 years old by all the great things that he's done so far. Anyway, so I won't take up all the time introducing him. This is the one and only Darren Reese. How you doing, man?
Thanks, man. No, sit down. No, thanks. You're too kind.
Oh, man.
No, man, I remember that day. I remember that billboard. I remember sitting there at McAllister's going, man, what are you doing?
What am I doing? I wonder sometimes today. Yeah.
Do you know what you're doing?
Right.
You know? And I give you credit. You did. And I put you through the firing squad worse than probably anybody else, because I think part of what I try to do is scare people off.
Yeah.
From doing this, because, it's not, this is bloody knuckle stuff.
I get it, man.
And, I remember sitting down at McCormick Smith's with a couple of gals that had a field day with you.
They very much did. And, after that field day, they became some of my biggest supporters and fans. And so, that's the way it goes. Shout out to Whitley and Lakin.
Yeah, man. That was a great lunch. You have stood up to and surpassed every hurdle that has come before you.
Hey, man. Well, I appreciate that, man. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell us about Darren Reese.
All right. Born in South Marion. Still live in Marion. Got away a couple of times for my undergrad and a little bit here and there, but for the most part, this has been home. Been able to make my way here for the most part. I was able to serve the community as a city employee a couple of different rafts a couple of times, even contractually. So stuff like neighborhood cleanups and getting neighborhood associations built in the 90s. Tox away days, for those, if anybody remembers that sort of crazy stuff. It was that it's kind of foreshadowed where I ended up, but ended up doing HR for the city, EOC stuff, ended up being the development director, and then got away to the private sector. Got a environmental engineering company that I work with a bunch of communities across the state, and also be able to, mostly private work, but just trying to leave things better than I found them. Doesn't always work.
Hey, but I'm trying. That's a heck of a resume, man. So basically, you've done almost everything, man.
Well,
you've done almost everything, which is great. So one thing I want to talk about is being about your stories, being from Marion, still being in Marion, from South Marion. A lot of people that I come across, they find it, or they have this notion to believe that they can't be successful being from Marion or even actually staying in Marion. So talk a little bit about how you've been able to find success and still being in the city.
You're absolutely right. First, I just reject the idea that you can't be successful here. I mean, you have to take that on, or else you are going to get caught up. I've seen, friends that, you can't do anything here. And you get a group of people around and say, you can't do anything here. And then all of a sudden, guess what? You can't do anything here.
Yeah.
And, it is tough sometimes to find employment, but it's honestly, it's even harder to start out on your own.
Yeah.
There's like a a bit of a fear or reluctance that we've got here locally that is too bad. And I think we're overcoming.
Yeah.
I think you're a great success story for that. When, hey, man, you get out there, you try your own thing. If it doesn't work out, that's okay.
Yeah, you got to try. So what would you say? 'Cause I try to use this platform to encourage listeners, from all over, but specifically local. What would you say to someone who is trying to start making their way, whether it be in the entrepreneurship field or in the corporate setting, to encourage them to, make their place here in Marion?
Well, it's not unlike kind of what I did to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, okay, take your idea, scare it, beat it up, see how hard it can last through the challenges that you can put it through. And that means, talk to your friends that have been in it. If you don't know anybody that's ever run a business, find one. Yeah. Because you know what? They'll talk to you.
Definitely. Yeah.
They'll absolutely talk to you. Don't let an idea that, I'm not good enough or no, they wouldn't take it. No, we'll talk to you. I promise you, everybody that's ever had to sign the front of a paycheck to employ someone is proud of that. Yeah. And everyone can be too. It is not easy. Yeah. But it is something that makes all the difference. And having the willingness to just do it, plant your flag. Yeah. It may not end up being something that you do.
That's true.
And that's okay too.
Yeah.
In my business, I like to hire people that have hung their own shingle and tried to be their own consultant because and it didn't work out. Yeah. That's okay. They have a better understanding about business. They understand the consequences of not coming to work on time and not doing that. I mean, that's, and it's just some basic stuff when it comes to that. And I guess maybe I say it's basic. It could be terrifying to some other people, but just ask someone. Yeah.
And I think that we have to start telling these stories and showing these examples so people can start to rid the mindset that success is not possible in Marion.
Right.
Because, there's been multiple success stories been over and over and over again of people who planted here and made it. But like I tell people all the time, we need to do a better job of telling our story. Mm-hmm. Specifically in Marion, if something bad happens, it'll cover the city in seconds.
Absolutely.
But if all the good things that happen, we have a hard time often telling those stories. So that's why I'm super excited to have you on, man, to tell about how successful you've been able to become being in Marion. Now we'll transition to business, right? Because you have a very unique business that most people don't even know what it is, why it exists, or how important it is to the success of, almost every business, right? So, so I'll tell this funny joke I like to say. So everyone knows that Marion was a heavy industrial town, right? Many factories everywhere, and there's absolutely no way that from those factories that the whole city is not contaminated.
It's not that bad. Don't do that. And what I would say, and this is the perfect, thanks, you set this right up. I would say, prove it.
Yeah, there we go. That's even better. So tell us a little about the environment. What is
That's
this?
one of the things I do. I prove it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I got the same thing. It's kind of that's when, my wife's in real estate. I've been in real estate. We've done some house flips and got some commercial properties and stuff like that along the way. But, especially when I was a development director and going through all these deals and all this stuff, there was always this environmental company that would kill a deal or I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Are you even doing? And I spend a little bit more time in that space, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of important, and this is so I saw it as a niche opportunity, and then I had an opportunity to go into that world, and basically we prove when someone's buying a property if it's okay, and if it's not, then we give a way for it to be.
Yeah. So explain what this means to people when you're saying okay versus not okay.
Sure.
Talk about, what the high view ins and outs of what it means for something to be okay and not okay when we're talking about properties.
Right. What we're talking about is regulatory liability at the end of the day. What has happened on the property? Has anybody spilled anything that would be a detriment or a hazard to human health? Is it still there? How bad of a deal is it? Does it need, remediated? That's, a word I use a lot. And is it then classified a brownfield? And is that, what we do? I do brownfield redevelopment. Mm-hmm. And so what we do is we basically do what starts with a book report, which is called phase 1 of all of the possible history that we can put together of what goes on with a property and tell it to either the buyer or the seller and say, hey, look, this is what's gone on here. And if we have what are recommendations, as to other things they need to figure out, that might, one, kill a deal.
Yeah.
Or two, and that's okay too. I mean, it's got to take someone with an appetite to be able to take on something to actually get it through. If you don't know what you're doing, don't do it.
Yeah.
But then we move on to a phase 2, which is a physical investigation of the site. So actually, we'll dig some holes, we'll take some samples, we'll do some stuff to confirm whether anything's there or not. Most of the time, things end right there.
Yeah. And
we figure out a way to develop around something that's there. So there you go. And but sometimes it takes some more work. Takes some time, yeah. So let's do a real life example for people in Marion. So I've got a lot of inquiries about some land the city of Marion owns next to the splash house. Yeah.
Right. So this area used to be a factory. It used to be a wire factory. So if for the listeners, this is right behind our splash house. It's about 10 acres of this open space, which was concrete now. And then people think that you can just go in there and just build whatever you want to build without having to go through any steps. So so in situations like that, we have to, test this ground. Yep. And in this case, it probably has some issues underneath.
You have to assume it does.
Yes. Yeah.
You always have to start with the idea that when something has been especially industrial at one time or another, that there is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So how can you either get it cheap enough to make it developable once you have to clean it up, or where do you find the grant money to get it cleaned up? Or, there are some legal ways to go through that too, which is a little bit more time sensitive and the lawyers like that part better. But
I get it.
They're suing people. But there's a lot of ways to get that done. But at the end of the day, it's about, can someone live there safely? Is the water okay? Is the air okay? And you got to make sure you do what you do to make sure that they're going to be all right.
Right. So like when you say cleanup, so I haven't been through a cleanup yet. So what's it look like? I mean, people need to understand, first of all, this is not cheap. It's not quick.
Right.
So what's the actual cleanup? Yeah, that's very true. So what's the actual cleanup process looks like? So you check the ground, you find something maybe contaminated, then you have to order the cleanup and pay for it, etc. So like what's that process look like?
There's a dozen different ways to hit any different project. So the phase 2 will identify where an issue is. So you got to drill a bunch of holes, figure out what's under the ground, see if it's bad, where is it? And then, there's chemical options. You can inject stuff into the dirt to alleviate the contaminants that are there. Sometimes you just have to dig it out.
Oh, wow.
And replace it with something else. We got a project in Kokomo where we've been hundreds of thousands of yards of dirt that had to go to a hazardous landfill. And it was on a creek. It's a big public deal. I mean, it was bad news and it needed to go. And so that was that. And it was very expensive to do. And then sometimes you can actually identify something and recognize that it's not moving around. It's not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
It might be able to stay.
Wow. Okay.
So, or at least a bit of it could.
Yeah.
Or it could stay under a parking lot. Or you can identify that, and that's that's a risk-based strategy that the state and the feds allow for.
Yeah.
Because honestly, no matter what, and I get it. I see this in your eyes sometimes. I see it in anybody. It's like, oh man, why do I got to deal with these regulators? Like, the regulators, they want business to happen too.
Yes. Yeah. I get
it. And we got to give them the path to be able to do that without putting somebody in danger, because none of the regulators ever want to have, I mean, like, I guess East Chicago, issue up in Northwest Indiana had, there's a site that got approved by IDEM that ended up having a whole bunch of heavy metals in the ground and stuff that. And, kids were getting sick and
it's insane.
Yeah. And it's like, nobody wants that on their resume.
Right. Yeah.
And so, they're gun shy when it comes to that. It's about getting the data that's necessary for the project that you want to do there, to be able to proceed. But at the end of the day, the more properties that we have in use, goes back to civics. Mm-hmm. It creates assessed valuation, which creates taxes, which allows us to be able to do the things that we do, and that's make a commercial site viable again, so people can be employed there
and you use it. Yeah. So I mean, I want people to realize is, from its environmental standpoint, every deal has to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like there's nothing that's going to happen that doesn't flow through environmental. Right. So what a great business to be in.
Well, it's still reluctant and a lot of people still try to get around it, but but every proper deal
right.
that has risk averse owners and buyers and then yeah.
Yeah. Okay, man.
Because someday, I mean, look, the industry is effectively still in its infancy. It's probably, 40, 50 years old.
Wow. So what you're saying is before that, people used to just do whatever they wanted.
That's the heydays, man. The 90s and 2000s in this industry, it was just like there was stuff everywhere to clean up.
Oh,
the good thing is, the Indiana and the U.S. in general are getting cleaned up. I mean, I think look back at this. Look at New York City in the 70s. That wasn't sepia tone.
Yeah. That's hilarious, man.
That was leaded gas.
Oh my gosh,
doing bad stuff. I mean, hey, candidly, go to China today. That's what it looks like there.
Wow.
Yeah, and our technologies are going to catch up, and we're going to be ahead of the planet when it's ready to go forward. And our stewardship is it's the right thing to do in the long term.
Yeah. So
so we've figured that out.
That's great, man. Well, so we appreciate you guys, man. I know I give you guys a hard time for slowing deals down.
I know.
We appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
So with your political experience, man, so you are the Grant County Republican Party chair.
Yeah.
As of now.
Yeah.
You are the
as of filming.
Yeah, as of filming, right. And you also are, I don't want to get this wrong, the 5th District Vice Chair.
Yeah.
Vice Chair for Indiana. So let's transition to talk a little bit about politics, man. Yeah. Why'd you get in it? Why do you stay in it? And
you're trying to get me to tell stories about your family. Your aunt and I.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sang for a political candidate.
No way.
In the last millennia.
So wait a minute. Before we were off camera, we joked about you opening up with a solo. So that really wasn't a joke. So I didn't know this, right? So so now it's okay. Now I know. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think it had to be, 1980s.
Wow. Okay.
We sang at Indiana Republican State Convention event. And I think that's probably, at least from a broad sense, the outside of Grant County stuff I remember happening. So that puts me at like 16, 17 years old. But I remember helping my dad help with the yard signs and stuff like that when I was 8 or 9.
Okay.
So it's just kind of always been something that's been in the family.
Okay.
And so early 90s, when I got out of college and came back, I was part of the Young Republicans, and it's just been, I've helped a ton of people that are no longer around
get
elected and help them on their campaigns and stuff like that. And then, I don't know, about 15 years ago, I got on the central committee here locally. And then about 4 years ago, I got on the state committee.
So what keeps you?
Keeps me, again, I want to leave it better. And the other thing I've really enjoyed as chair is parlaying that, because I've always been involved with the legislative process. I'm involved with it professionally because IDEM has a lot to do with what work I get to do, and so I'm always trying to impact how their policies are played. But I've always enjoyed that kind of space there in Indy, and I've always kind of noticed that Grant County has always been kind of on the sideline, and so one of the things that I've done is try to remind people down there that there's life out here in the sticks.
Yeah, don't forget about us.
Exactly. And it's not anything of their doing, but it's like you deal with the people that are in front of you.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, I don't know how often do you think about Adams County?
Hardly ever.
See, that's what. So I've parlayed, my growth in the party to be present. Mm-hmm. And I think that, we've gotten a lot more attention. We've got a lot more okra. We've got a lot more awareness. Candidly, it really helped. A lot of the years that I've spent helped me help you.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah. So I want that for people here.
Mhm.
And 10 years ago, I was like the only person from Grant County that was hanging out down there. Now we run into each other.
Yeah, all the time.
And there's a dozen people that are down there. There's local businesses that are a lot more involved down there. There's a lot, and that's the stuff that helps our local environment be more willing and able to grow. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah, and that's why I've done it. I don't know if I'll be speaking past tense when this gets out, but no matter what, one way or another, I'm going to still do that.
Right.
That's part of what, everywhere I go, I try to think of someone here locally or a group or something that I can help connect.
Yeah. And again, I appreciate you for that, man. You have been the leader of our local party through a historic time.
Oh. So
you, in all of Marion history, there has never been a complete electorate of all Republicans.
Yeah.
And so you get to go down in history as the person who was at the helm of our party that was able to get us across that line, man. I really appreciate you and your leadership for that.
Thanks. And both the people that remember that someday might also get a kick out of it.
that's a good one, man. It's true. I mean, because it all boils down to leadership, man. This wasn't on my notes, but leadership is, I think, is key, man, to the success that you want to see, whether it's political or business or anything that you want to do. So, what's some leadership advice? If you were to do a quick blurb for someone, what's some leadership advice you would give to people?
Don't be uncomfortable where you are. First, that's one of the things that I think, as a kind of a side county, we're not the richest county. We're not that. And we kind of have that. Well, it's just it kind of goes back to that. Well, we can't make it here,
right?
We can do it. The first thing about making it is acting like you can.
Yeah,
and being comfortable in any room. That is really hard to do because people are just people. I mean, you hear that stuff. Oh, people put their pants on too, like all that stuff. But the more you do get to know people, that is really what it's about.
Right.
And so from that perspective, don't count yourself out first.
Yeah.
Don't negotiate against yourself.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's a good
when
one.
you're in a circumstance where you can make an impact, because you can make an impact.
Yeah.
And you can choose the kind of impact that you want to make. That's where, and I really think everybody kind of has the same ability to do that.
Yeah.
It may be Pollyanna, but I'm like, I do think, if you mean well and you want to do that, I mean, sometimes you got to defend yourself. Sometimes things aren't always nice.
But
I get it. but on balance, and that's the stuff that'll come at you from being a leader. I mean, if you don't have, or you never make a decision, then you're not going to get anything done.
Right.
And you're not going to make anybody mad. Yep. What's more important?
It's true. You can't be scared. Right. You can't be scared to go at it, man. Right. So what's next for Darren Reese?
I don't know, man. I don't feel as old as 70.
He's not 70, by the way.
I'm not 70.
When it's released, he's not 70.
No. Well, yeah, right. But it is digital, so it'll be around.
Yeah.
Maybe if I ever. Yeah.
Yes.
But I don't know what Act 3 is, man. That's something I've been kind of exploring for a little while. I still like the giving. I like the ability to be involved in a positive way. And so those are that. So, we'll see. I've got some opportunities that are a little bit more geographically challenging as far as across better areas. And I'm kind of fumbling all over that, but I mean, my company right now, we work all across North America, and so I'm in touch with a lot of people from a lot of places, and that may be that, but I do think Marion will be home.
I like that,
and because that's part of it. I understand why some people check out and do their thing, but I think the more and more we do here that we deserve, I think that's something that you've incorporated. Grant County deserves nice things. Everybody here deserves nice things,
right?
And guess what? You get to define what a nice thing is for yourself.
Yes, 100%.
But it also has to be then something of value, not just a second.
Yeah,
not just a and so that at least that aspiration, should be there. So I haven't lost that. I'm not ready to just check out, and I'm not ready.
You know,
So that's it.
good,
That's as far as you're going to get.
No, okay, that's good, man. Well, man, I really appreciate you for coming on.
Thanks so much.
Coming on the show, man. You said so many great nuggets for people today, but I want people to be encouraged wherever you're watching from, specifically here. You can be successful right here in Marion, Indiana, and you're looking at an example. And Darren Reese, that success is obtainable.
You're looking at an example in Ron Morrell.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
You can do this here. Be encouraged. Again, thank you so much for listening.
Producer's an example too.
100%.
We're surrounded by it.
We're surrounded by success. And so be encouraged to come here. This podcast is now going to be available on all major streaming platforms, including now YouTube. Check us out. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great evening.